qualitative research is the cornerstone of what I do because it helps me understand what matters to people. It helps me understand, what are their desires? What do people want? What do people think is ideal? When I was in Uzbekistan, I knew that people were spending their leisure time hanging out with their families. And if you only did qualitative research in Uzbekistan, you might consider that totally normal, right? You hang out with your families. But if you take this more comparative perspective, you'll see that actually that's pretty unusual in a global perspective. So in Europe, people or Latin America, people will be more likely to hang out with their friends. So just me spending time with the Uzbeks, seeing that they're spending time with their families, I realized the importance of strong family ties. I realized how important it is to be loyal to your family. I also saw this in Morocco. For example, once I was there during Ramadan and I visited 6 different cities and I was staying with this one family and her mother was preparing the iftar, that is the meal where you break your fast. And the mother wanted dates. So we had to walk all the way across the Medina, that is the market, to find dates from one specific person. And as we were walking through the market, I saw so many different dates. I was like, why? What's wrong with those dates? Like, all dates look the same to me. What's wrong with these dates? Like, all the same. And she said, no, we have to buy from our cousin because we trust our cousin. And I think that's such a good example of how in the Middle East and North Africa, there's very high rates of cousin marriage, very strong family ties, very strong family loyalty, very strong trust in kin. And so people tend to socialize and do business and even marry among their relatives. So that's given me a strong signal about how important family ties are and family loyalty is. So me walking 2 miles in the hot sun across Fez to get dates, that was useful for me. That was really useful because it helps me understand what's important to people. Or, for example, going back to our case of Latin America, you can ask Latin Americans, what do you think of feminism? And if ordinary men and women, non-feminists, non-activists say to me, I'm not so keen on it, or they're a bit aggressive, or I don't see the point of all this marching, or I've never been in a march, that helps me understand that maybe the feminist activism isn't the key driver of some of these cultural changes. Or I can spend time with people and ask them, how do you like to spend your leisure time? And if people say, I really enjoy these telenovelas, and I ask them, which characters did you like and who do you enjoy watching? That helps me understand what actually matters to people. There are so many different aspects to it. So one is doing that comparison. One thing I found funny when I was in Brazil, a year ago, I was in Hong Kong. I was staying at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And my windows were barred. And I couldn't open my windows. I couldn't even get out of my windows. And that's because China and East Asia more generally have such a competitive society whereby people really want to be number one. They try so hard in school and work. They work very long hours. Sometimes even in schools, the seats are allocated according to your ranking. That when people don't achieve number one, when people aren't thriving and being at the top, they can feel very depressed and they feel like they're a failure. And so for that reason, South Korea and Hong Kong have high rates of depression, high rates of suicides. So these bars were put up because someone the year before in this postgraduate accommodation had thrown themselves out of the window, right? High rates of suicide. Whereas when I was in Brazil, the bars were outside the window because of the high rates of violence, right? You don't want someone to come in. So I just think these little things that you can see, they reflect something bigger about the society. And so, this is a society where people are nervous about outsiders. There's a threat of violence. There's a danger of violence. So you pick up on these little things. You work out how things are different. Let me give you another example. When I was in Hong Kong, it was for the Lunar New Year festival, which is like the Chinese big celebration, the annual celebration New Year. And when I went to the big market, all the items, all the toys, all the banners, all the slogans were all celebrating luck and money. There was a cat, everything was all about luck and money. It was like, make money, get rich. Even when I went into the Hong Kong supermarkets, there was a freezer where the supermarket freezer was saying, hope you get rich this year. Everything was about luck and money. And this tells me something about how important this ideal of economic prosperity and upward mobility is in Cantonese and Chinese culture more broadly. So it's just like going to a supermarket can teach me a lot about the culture. Or, for example, when I was in Sardinia or in Italy, I'd go to churches and I would discover, these churches are pretty empty. And that would make me see that actually there's been cultural change and people are less religious. So it's all these little things that I do, whether it's talking to people about TV shows or going to supermarkets, helps me sort of work out, okay, so this is what's important here. Another thing I love doing is interviewing like grandmothers and their daughters, because then I can really see the generational differences. But the most important thing is that it's not me doing that by myself. There are so many people all over the world who have said, Alice, come and stay with us. We're going to help you. We're going to connect you to people. And so those amazingly generous, kind people enable me to understand each society and work out what's going on. So yes, this is very much like this hugely collective effort about, kindness and generosity, where people really try to help me. So it's not Alice Evans doing any of this by myself. There are so many very nice people helping me work it all out, like build a big jigsaw.